Hi, I'm Ray with Triple P Funds. Now, we just got back from a nice workshop in Philadelphia at the One Art Community Center. Now, this is a community center in Philadelphia, and I'll introduce them to you. This is where the event took place today, and this is about connecting and making connections. Now, we've been up here all week for Hempcrete Week, which is where we're learning about industrial hemp and how to use that material and that application specifically in restoring existing homes. A lot of them often are historic homes in communities, as well as building in new construction, which is what our fund does quite a bit. Now, I'll introduce the oneartcommunitycenter.com, and I'll just read a little introduction to them so you'll know a little bit more about their community center. Hopefully, if you're in that area, you can connect with them, or you can duplicate their efforts in your area as well. They had some fantastic demonstration, sustainable community garden, things of that nature along in there, very enjoyable. It's our vision to provide an inspirational space and programming which embraces and embodies positive values through the arts, education, and cultural community engagement, providing programs that facilitate holistic healing, foster environmental sustainability, cultivate collaborative partnerships, and promote collective growth and unity within the community. Now, this is some very good, genuine connections that we like to see. We realize that the houses that we build are homes, and the people in those homes collectively make a community, and it's fantastic to connect in such a meaningful way. So, without any further ado, here's Cameron McIntosh with Americhanvre. Stay tuned to the end of the video, and I'll talk about some of the questions that came up after we finished filming his talk. There was a lot of good question and answer and conversation along from there, and so I'll include some comments on there. Take it away, Cameron.
I'm going to let Cameron get started. He's our expert for the day, and we're really excited. Like Amanada said, this plant can be used for food, fiber, medicine, and housing. So we're going to be working on just a small part of that. And so this is one element. When we talk about hemp and when we talk about cannabis, it's like totally taken out of the picture. People talk about it, but I don't really see people actually getting in and putting their hands in it and feeling it and touching it and actually understanding what it is. Yeah, like they said, there are many who are called, but only a few who are chosen. So we are the chosen ones today. All right, Cameron, go ahead.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you to Juan and Malika for having us here today at the One Art Center. This is a very special place. Yeah. Very, very special place. My name is Cameron McIntosh. My company is Americhanvre Cast Hemp. We are a hempcrete installer out of Allentown, Pennsylvania. So we're a licensed and insured company, basically an insulation subcontractor that focuses specifically on this type of biocomposite insulation. So I'll start off by saying hempcrete is a terrible word for it. It makes you think, oh, I can use this like concrete. It's very different. It is a non-structural biocomposite insulation material that's formed from a combination of the inner woody core of the industrial fiber hemp stalk, which you can see some examples of here. This is it in crude form, and also here in the bales, in the Cannabat bales, and a lime-based binder. Lime is much lower embodied carbon masonry material. Even Portland cement concrete starts out as lime. They fire it to a very high temperature, and then it takes lots of energy to grind it down. That's why concrete is very carbon intensive, very carbon positive. Lime is much less so. It still takes energy to fire it and grind it back down. But because of that, you haven't completely destroyed the chemical bonds that it makes, and it will actually recarbonate over time, recapturing a portion of that, not all, but a portion of that carbon that was driven off. So once combined with the inner woody core of the hemp plant and water, those are the three components, lime, hemp, and water, you get a carbon negative material because the industrial hemp fiber stalk grows to about 8 to 10 feet in 3 months or less. So any fast-growing crop like that you can then take and stabilize and lock away in the walls of a building, you're actually storing a considerable amount of carbon. So the lime plays into that as well, but 90% of the carbon that's stored in this material is because of the fact that the hemp plant grows so quickly. For those of you that don't know, fiber industrial hemp is a real commodity crop. It's mechanically planted, mechanically harvested, mechanically separated, the fiber and the hurd. And you can again see here what that looks like at the first stage. Very different from the cannabinoid varieties of the cannabis plant. Those are short, stubby, they encourage lots of branching. You do not want them to get pollinated for any reason. And the stalks start at 3 inches or more at the base and taper out to 1/4 inch at the ends, which presents one of several problems with actually utilizing the cannabinoid varieties of the cannabis plant for this specific application. So that's not to say that waste isn't useful in other ways. There's people working on how to use the waste from the cannabinoid cannabis industry, both the stems and the post-extracted waste. That's different. That's not what we're doing here. Again, this is from the real fiber industrial hemp plant. To give you an example, you can grow about 1,200 or so cannabinoid variety cannabis plants on an acre. This crop, you're pushing into the 300,000-400,000 plants per acre range. So much denser. You plant them tight so they grow up nice and tall and straight. And that action actually creates an amazing capillary structure within the hurd, because it's a plant that has to be able to take water from 8 feet off the ground all the way to the top. So that plays into the performance of Hempcrete. So why do we use Hempcrete? Hempcrete is first and foremost healthy and non-toxic. Okay, so there's nothing unnatural, no petrochemical based component to any of this. So it is a healthy material, and again, it's something that we don't think about here. You can turn over any bag of food in America and see exactly what's in it. We all know that now. We're all educating ourselves how to eat healthy and eat good food. We do not put the same weight on the buildings that we live in and the materials that we use. So many of the traditional construction materials have things like formaldehyde and other petrochemical compounds in them that may translate into what you might have heard as new home sickness. We all know what that smell is when you walk into a new building. You can smell the paint, you can smell the carpet, you can smell the tapes and the sealants and all the things that they've been using in that building. You know it's there. That's what I'm talking about. The building that you live in is as important as the food that you eat to your health. That is absolutely true, and people are starting to understand that. So healthy material, super performant as both thermal and acoustic insulation. So as far as thermal insulation goes, you're creating a mass in the wall, and these components come together to suspend the hurd in a matrix that traps air pockets in the wall. So just like a double pane window or a greenhouse with 2 layers of plastic, it's the trapped air in there that gives you your insulation value. And I get the question a lot, what's the R value of hemp? The R value of Hempcrete, is around 2 per inch. That's not a great measure. It's not an accurate measure for how performant this is. Typically when they test insulation materials in a lab, they get an understanding that they build a model off of for how a house will perform. Then when they go in after that house has been built and check those same things, they're realizing that it's falling short of what it was posting in the lab. Whereas Hempcrete is actually the opposite. It's outperforming their modeling, which is very rare. Blower door tests, if anyone's familiar, they literally seal the home off, put a big vacuum on the door, and they see, they measure how long it takes to dissipate. Wonderful thermal insulation, also acoustic insulation. When you're in a Hempcrete structure surrounded by 4 walls of Hempcrete, it sounds like your voice is this close to your head. There's literally no reverberation. It's amazing. It sounds like you're wearing headphones. So what does that mean for living in a home, or maybe for a multi-family home? No noise from the neighbors, no foot traffic noise, no toilet flushing, utility running noises. So very, very compelling, again, as acoustic insulation. It's not, if you talk to a real audiophile, someone who works in sound, that's not always the best thing. They don't always want all of the sound to be absorbed. Sometimes they want a certain type of reverberation. But again, for things like when you're living in a home, eating away at the noises that you normally hear. It's also mold, mildew, and rot and pest resistant. The reason being that the binder is alkaline. So because of that, pests will not eat into it, burns their mouths, dulls their teeth. Same for insects. Insects will not nest in it and create, burrows in it. And again, because it's alkaline, it's mold and mildew and rot resistant. I say resistant because it cannot be exposed to constant moisture. There's still a cellulose-based material inside of it. It will rot if it's completely submerged. But it's very good with normal conditions in a house at balancing the humidity. So in fact, it's actually ionizing the air. It's a vapor open system. There's no vapor barrier. We're allowing the free transfer of vapor from one side to the other because it's finished with a lime plaster. So in doing so, it's actually ionizing that air that's passing through, again, because of the alkalinity of the environment. So it's improving the interior air quality, managing humidity, keeps your home at a constant temperature. I tell people conservatively, this material will save between 30 and 60% on your heating and energy costs, just because you're installing that mass. If you do a monolithic casting, which is a one-piece casting of the exterior walls and the roof, it's super performant. That, of course, depends on the design of the home, the climate that you're in, your personal preference. I will always need an air conditioner at night, no matter how performant my house is. Very hot-natured. But again, it will substantially cut down on your heating and cooling costs. So one of the things that we're focusing specifically on is retrofitting as much as new building. Because of the carbon storage potential of this material, retrofitting an existing home is actually one of the best ways to utilize it, because you're literally locking away that carbon in an existing structure. You're not spending the money to build a new structure or the carbon to build a new structure. And in the process, you're actually improving the energy efficiency of a very inefficient building. This is the Northeast. We have many, many old homes, especially in the city here, where, poorly insulated, they're oil or gas heat. So they're very, they're a big draw on our consumption. So again, if you're retrofitting an existing structure with this material, you're literally locking carbon away in the walls and you're improving the energy efficiency. So to me, that's one of the most compelling things about it. One of the reasons why I'm happy to be here in the city, exposing this community to this material, because I think it fits very well. Again, all of these things come together to make great sense for affordable housing. Again, you're creating and building affordable housing with a healthy material. A lot of times housing projects get put up on brownfield restoration sites, old schools, things like that, to where they're actually being poisoned. People are literally being poisoned in low-income housing, and then they're using formaldehyde for the plywood and in the drywall and the tapes and the sealants and all that other horrible stuff. So it's actually a very toxic environment. The only thing that doesn't make sense for affordable housing right now is the fact that importing the materials is so expensive. So via our All Together Now nonprofit, I'm the local supply chain coordinator for the Hemp Coalition. We're focusing on getting farmers in this area to grow this crop, to focus on the fiber industrial side and the end use applications thereof. So that's really important to driving the cost down. Right now, if I were to build a new house just with this material, it would be anywhere from 20 to 30% more expensive, again, depending on the design and the location of the building, as compared to traditional construction. It's a loss leader. It will save you thousands of dollars over the life of owning the home, and even possibly medical bills, but it's still hard for someone who's building a new home to digest the fact that they're going to spend 30% more on that home. So the binder that we're using today is also from France. We do have a local option here. It's not as good for what we're going to be doing today. I'll get into that a little bit. But local sources for both the binder and the hurd are going to be very important to driving the costs down. And lime is present in every country on earth in abundance. So there's no reason to be importing it. Again, same with the Hempcrete now, thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill and the 2014 Farm Bill that Obama signed that opened the door to hemp farming. We are now able to grow this crop here. So there is literally nothing in the way anymore. We are very much focused on attracting building and construction professionals from other trades to this system, because we don't yet have a building code written for it. So it's difficult to get permitted in an urban area or for a multifamily structure. We have success in an urban area. We have success in rural areas getting permitted because the code enforcement is often a little bit more relaxed. We're not looking at doing commercial structures or multifamily homes yet. So you can typically get a variance to build with it. In the city, it's a little bit more difficult. You have a higher threshold for health and human safety that the city is looking for. So in order to do that, there's a whole host of testing that has to happen on the thermal and fire resistance, compressive strength, all kinds of stuff. That will lead to an ICC code index, the International Code Council. Again, one of the beautiful things about it is that it does not have to look like a sustainable building. When I say green building and sustainable building, some of you might picture an Earthship or an Adobe home or something like that. Very typecast, wonderful homes, but very typecast. They are not for everyone. This material can be used with modern materials, modern design, very effectively. So it's bridging that gap.
Great talk from Cameron. Some of the questions that came up were specifically related to what about using the industrial hemp and the Hempcrete application. How is that best used in restoring a historical home, or any home for that matter of fact, that is an older dwelling, older frame structure, no matter what the cladding on the outside, whether it's wood or brick or anything like that. The most common way to include Hempcrete is we're really replacing the insulation. If you're thinking in any scenario where you would be tempted to put in the spray foam to gain some rigidity and insulation, this is where you can use Hempcrete instead. It's non-toxic, it's mold resistant, fire resistant, all of those good things and the qualities you have, as well as being carbon sequestering within the walls of the very home. I was drawn to Hempcrete just because it's a superior performing product in the construction and built space. The fact that it does all of these other fantastic things, both for the environment of the home as well as the environment as a whole, just make it that much more of a fantastic scenario. But typically it is when a home is aged to where it needs to be restored and renovated. Maybe it's had some leaks to where there's mold present, or to where the restoration needs to take place. You would typically pull out all of the affected areas that you want to change out, and then either spray or cast apply the Hempcrete to the very walls that are the exterior walls in the home. You'll gain a nice, comfortable, healthy living space out of it, and reach out to either to us through tripplepfund.com or to Cameron with Americhanvre, and I'll put links to both of those in the show notes. And I look forward to hearing from you and restoring some communities and connecting with you soon.